From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Our connection this hour is made in a Rochester neighborhood on a summer day. The weather is perfect. School is out. Can you remember what those summer days were like where you grew up? Maybe you rode bikes with the neighborhood kids until sunset. Maybe you walked to a local store to grab a bite to eat and hang out. Maybe you ran through sprinklers in a neighbor's yard when it got really hot. This summer, we've been talking to neighbors in the El Camino neighborhood in Rochester, and some have described a kind of lost youth for their children. Some have said their kids stay in the house, not wanting to be around drugs or addiction. This neighborhood is like any other in that the people who live here want safe streets and a chance to raise healthy families. For decades, various organizations have been around, sometimes with funding, sometimes with new initiatives designed to make this neighborhood healthier and more connected. And the neighbors I've spoken with have told us it's worked pretty well if the programs can be sustained. Right now, times are pretty tough. Today we are bringing Connections on the road to a live audience here in the El Camino neighborhood. We're coming to you from Ibero-American Action League and the Community Resource Center at El Camino. Ibero, if you don't know, is a dual-language, multi-service nonprofit agency. It advocates for and serves the Latino community and underserved populations across upstate New York, offering programs in early childhood education, elder support, vocational training, and developmental disabilities. In the live audience today are neighbors, along with community leaders and elected lawmakers from the Rochester City School Board, Rochester City Council, the Monroe County Legislature, and the New York State Legislature. We're going to welcome comments and questions from the live audience later this hour. First, let me introduce our panel. Angelica Perez-Delgado is President and CEO of Ibero, and it's great to be with you. I was going to say great to have you. Thank you for having us today.
Welcome. Welcome to the Community Resource Center at Camino. We're so happy to have you here.
It's great to be here. Maria Garcia is a marketplace bilingual facilitated enroller for Excellus BlueCross BlueShield. Welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And welcome to Ramona Colon, who's a resident of the El Camino neighborhood for more than 30 years. Good to see you, Ramona. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me ask the live audience one time to give a round of applause to Ibero for hosting us today, and this is a great place to be here. So thank you very much. And I have to start with Angelica because in the last week, there have been conflicting reports about what you and your team have dealt with in this neighborhood and some confusion about whether ICE has been around and what they've been doing. Can you just describe what you understand has been happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think the confusion may be with the immigration enforcement agencies. On Wednesday, I clearly asked the ICE agent to leave my parking lot.
Are you sure it was an ICE agent?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. It had a green vest, yellow lettering. He was in a Suburban. It was too high. I made the decision to not approach the agent with a camera because my primary goal was to not escalate an incident in our campus. But we have video, and it sounds like maybe it's time for me to post that video on Facebook and let my community decide for itself. We have seen this vehicle repeatedly on North Clinton Avenue outside of the vehicle, so we're 100% positive that there was a nice agent. There was actually 3 parked in my parking lot in unmarked vehicles, and we have been surveilled daily since Wednesday.
Are you worried about the way people in this neighborhood are being treated right now?
I am very worried. I think we are in a neighborhood that's already chronically stressed. I mean, we're here, right, to talk about social determinants of health and how these environments impact us daily. And I feel stressed. I feel the tension in my own heart, in my own high blood pressure. I mean, it's been a week where I've been concerned about my own health and the inability to sleep, thinking about how I'm going to manage this situation. So I can only imagine what that feels to the residents of this neighborhood that have to not only be exposed to so many other social factors that impact them daily, but to add ICE activity that's prominent in this neighborhood on top of that is completely unacceptable.
Maria is not only from Excellus, but also from the neighborhood here. You grew up here.
I did. I actually was born and raised in Rochester, but lived in Puerto Rico for a little while and then came back in the 1980s, and seeing what the community was like then, feeling safe walking from school home, not having to worry about anything is definitely not what it looks like today.
You used to walk the streets quite often?
Every day.
What were summers like?
Amazing. We played outside. We went to visit our friends. At that time, we used to have a place called PRYD on North Clinton Avenue, Puerto Rican Youth Development. We were safe enough to walk as teenagers to the center and just have a great time and feel safe and enjoy the community that we come from.
I asked about ICE to start because that's, I think, to Angelica's point, it's adding to the stress, but the rest of the hour is not about that. I am curious to know, Maria, having grown up here, born in Rochester, born obviously in this country, do you feel any differently now, even doing your work, walking streets in this climate?
For sure, it's not the same anymore. I am nervous and anxious when I'm out there. I was just sharing with Angelica and Ramona that I actually carry my passport around. Why? Because I'm brown. So people look at me, they're not going to think, oh, she was born here or she's Puerto Rican. No, they're going to judge us by the way we look. So, yes, I carry my passport just in case, just so I feel safe.
Coming up here, we'll talk more about the work you're doing professionally. But in general, what is it like being back here and seeing how much change has happened in 3 decades?
It's sad. It's really sad. I mean, we had so many things going on in this community. And to see it, the crime, the violence, the drugs, it's an unsafe neighborhood. And it's really sad that our people have to live this way.
Ramona and I spoke briefly yesterday, and this is a chance to understand the neighbor's perspective. Ramona, you've lived in this neighborhood for how long now?
30 years.
About 30 years?
Yes.
What were your memories in the mid-90s like compared to now?
So my kids, my 2 older ones were always outside playing with their cousins. They would walk actually to school, School 20 on Clinton. It was great. It was very nice to be outside with all the kids playing. Now I have my youngest one, she's 17, and she doesn't like going outside. My daughter, my oldest, lives right down the street. She doesn't even like walk to her sister's house.
So
because
you have an adult daughter who lives on the same street as you?
Yes.
And your 17-year-old daughter won't even walk 5 houses down?
No. Wow. She doesn't feel comfortable. She doesn't feel safe, because of all the drugs and like homeless situations that are around, our streets. So she just doesn't like it. She's a homebody.
How often do you see needles and drug paraphernalia?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. I have a community garden right on my street, and I go clean it maybe 2 times a week. My son actually maintains the grass, cuts the grass and everything. So we always have to be cleaning it, picking it up, making sure that there's no homeless people because they come and they just, sleep there and stuff. So we make sure we keep it nice and neat, for the neighborhood because I have a blessing house too there.
I have a list of different things that different organizations, Ibero at the center of this, but not just Ibero, have done over the last couple of decades, trying to intervene, trying to create opportunities for block parties and neighbors to get to know each other. And
Yes.
you were mentioning to me that you remember some block parties, and those kind of things can be really important.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. When Project Hope started with Miguel Melendez, actually it was my husband who started first with Miguel. Then I got tagged in there. But it was amazing. We used to do block parties. We would close the street down and just do hot dogs and hamburgers for all the kids in the neighborhood. We used to do back to school activities like book bags and stuff. We would have the fire department come out. The kids could get on the fire truck and stuff. It was great. But little by little, that all disappeared. Obviously, fundings, it's not the same. For me, I try to keep up, but obviously, I can't be affording stuff, if I have to take care of my own family too. So it's just, sad that has all been little by little taken away because I think we need it, especially my 17-year-old now. I think she misses that, miss that whole thing of growing up in the community with other kids around because, like I said, she doesn't go outside.
Does she think about, she's going to be an adult soon, does she think about where she wants to live herself?
Well, she's thinking, obviously, of going to college, but obviously, because of, money and stuff, she might stay home for a while, to save money. But not really. She doesn't really think of going anywhere else.
I'm just thinking of, teenagers shouldn't be scared to walk down the street.
Yeah.
And I feel for her. And so, Angelica, when you hear that story, and then you hear Ramona say, hey, I remember the block parties. I remember Project Hope. There's a lot of people in this room who've made some of that stuff happen. I think everyone in this room cares very much about making change. What do you hear from Ramona first and foremost?
Well, I know firsthand. I grew up in this neighborhood on Scranton Street. I was actually, my family still lives here. I spend more time in this corridor than I do the very house that I bought somewhere else. So I totally hear the concerns from everyone. But what I also like to remind everyone is that this is such a rich and vibrant neighborhood. Every single day, I am inspired by the residents of this community and how they come together to protect every single asset that remains in this neighborhood. And I see a lot of them in the audience today. It's complex. The history of this neighborhood is complex. The history in Rochester, how this became the second poorest, zip code. There's a lot of complexities surrounding this neighborhood, but one thing that is not lacking is the commitment and resiliency from the residents and the community members that show up here and live here every day. So that, to me, is the most inspiring. I always challenge people to come into this neighborhood, go to the plaza, go when we have activities in Conkey Corner Park, when we do things right here. I've been on Ice Watch for, since Wednesday. I've been a parking attendant trying to, monitor my parking lots. And one thing that I can tell you is this community resource center sees about 100 to 150 people every day. So although there are these concerns, we are witnessing people who are very resilient, who are working and advocating really hard from their neighborhood, and some who this is what they have. They can't pick up and move somewhere else. They have to fight for their assets here. So
at some points during this conversation, listeners might hear you use the phrase built environment, which is, that's a bit of an organizational term. But when we say built environment, what do you mean by that?
I think when people talk about the social determinants of health, there are some very obvious things that we can talk about. We can talk about housing, we can talk about transportation, we can talk about access to food. What we don't always talk about is what happens when the built environment is the primary reason for ongoing chronic stress and what that does to people who are already at risk for health disparities and already may be part of a group that is experiencing poor health outcomes. It is very challenging. I mean, when you talked about the description of being outside in your opening statement and playing, I want you to think about that in the context of a 7-year-old that lives in this neighborhood who may have a homeless encampment next to it that is full of feces, where people are walking around like zombies, where there's open air drug market. We're going to add ICE activity to this new stress. I just don't know how anything in that environment is promoting health. We're also in a neighborhood where I've come to learn where everybody who's writing a grant or pursuing services loves to use the data for the zip code. But I have a very hard time sometimes visually seeing people's long-term commitment to this neighborhood. And that's one thing when I joined Ibero in 2019. One of the reasons why I came to Ibero was because I was familiar with the work that they had done in the neighborhood and their commitment. And that goes beyond 9 to 5. As the CEO of this institution, I join a lot of my peers that are in the audience on Sundays to walk from 7 to 9 p.m. I'm the first one to try to convene families together when there's an issue in the neighborhood, whether it's in my street. My administrative offices are on Evergreen, so I'm very connected to all the neighbors there. Very connected to the partners that are housed with us on our corridor, like Father Tracy Advocacy Center, the work that we're doing in the plaza. So that's, I think, the non-common part that we don't talk about when it talks about neighborhood and built environments. It's beyond safe walkways, it's beyond environmental impact, it's beyond housing. There's some deep-rooted issues that we have to look at that are impacting our people.
Ramona, what do you and your neighbors, what do you think you need most to have a situation where your kids grow up feeling like, yeah, I'm going outside in the summer. I feel comfortable. I'm going to do that again.
I just think we need to be more not scared of going outside. Being more inviting. Obviously, all the stuff that's going around, in the neighborhood makes everybody scared. But bring back like more of the resources that we had before, so we're able to, provide and have more fun stuff like it was before. Because, I really think that we need that, like, for us to come together.
Is that achievable, Angelica?
I mean, I think it depends on the funders, and I think it depends on what they prioritize. This is a long game. There's no cute KPIs that are going to happen in a 12-month period. It's really work that is not seen, but the long-term effects of it are felt widely, and I think are appreciated from the residents. What I've experienced when I've asked for funding is that people are so hyper-focused on programs and services that it's hard for them to see what needs to happen beyond that. I always say at Ibero, programs and services is our side gig. That's how we fund the revolution or the things that really need to happen in our neighborhood, because there's not a lot of people knocking on our door trying to give us money for all the effort that it requires on Ibero to convene people like the Northeast Safety Committee, or to be able to back up people like the El Camino Association, or to be able to right now, put a response together for the neighborhood, so for the neighbors, so that they can respond accordingly to ICE. There's nobody writing a check for that. They want programmatic things. They want FTEs. They want all these other things that in reality are not what we need in the neighborhood. People should really consider how do they fund organizing, especially neighborhood organizing or the development of assets. We do that out of the goodness of our heart. We take it upon ourselves that even beyond the program and services, that we are committed to this neighborhood, whether somebody pays for it or not. But not everybody's able to make that choice. We're a bigger enterprise. We're able to do that. We're able to work that magic. But with the pressures that we're feeling now in this sector, I experienced a reduction of $3 million. I went from being a $16 million operating budget to a $13 million operating budget. I mean, those are real losses of real support that every day impede our ability to give people like Ramona and the kids in this neighborhood and the residents what they really need.
Where did the cuts come from?
So a lot of it was, migrants. When we were welcoming migrants, the line was long. People were, giving money away to support. Now that our migrant communities are under attack, that line is a lot shorter. We don't have as much of the funding. As an institution, we have had to make difficult decisions about certain funding that limits the ability on who we can serve and the way that we want to serve them. So we've walked away from funding as well, right? Because we're not going to restrict ourselves or sell ourselves short in the services that we provide just to chase money. And I think in our community, people who fund us, it's like distracted. 1 minute we're working on workforce, 1 minute we're working on migrants, 1 minute, and then every institution almost loses its ability to keep its identity, because in order for us to remain alive, we're forced into certain things. So one of the things that we've done at Ibero is say, this is who we are. We are a Latino serving institution that only doesn't serve Latinos. 30% of everybody that walks through the Ibero doors are African American. And this is what we do, right? These are our buckets. We do workforce, we do, community health workers, family stability. These are the things. But to keep that identity is difficult, because everyday funding makes you think, do I need to go do something else? Even though it may not be what the community that you're serving is asking for. So
you heard Angie mention being in the second poorest zip code. What's the stat?
The second. I believe we're still holding the title, unfortunately, of the second in New York State.
Second poorest in New York State. And so attached to that, not a surprise, are poorer health outcomes, things like that. And so part of what Maria Garcia does as a marketplace bilingual facilitated enroller for Excellus BlueCross BlueShield is trying to, this is the cliche, but this is the reality, reach people where they are. And where they are is the neighborhoods where you actually grew up. So you have the knowledge of the neighborhoods. Tell me about the work that you do.
So I do work a lot in the community. I love to work for Excellus BlueCross BlueShield. It has given me an opportunity to give back to the community. I am out there, feet on the street. We do health events. We meet people where they're at. We have to build that trust. And if people don't trust you with everything that's going on, they have to be able to relate to you. And so I will help networking. If someone needs some type of shelter or food, we work with different agencies, so we're able not to just help them get that health insurance that they need to get their physicals, or if they're sick, we streamline the process for them. A lot of our people do not have the computers, are not able to get to the library to use their computers, and sometimes calling the states to do that application over the phone can be very deterring for them because they don't understand the language of the application. So language is a barrier. So I'm able to speak Spanish with them. We also provide them language services. So I do work with our Spanish population a lot, but it doesn't matter if you're from another country. We try to meet you where you're at. And so, yeah, that's what we do. We're here for the people. I work with government programs, so different, Child Plus and Medicaid and things like that. And we have a group across the thruway. So I'm based out of Monroe County, but I also do Wayne County, Ontario. And so we have people like me everywhere so that they feel comfortable coming to me. And again, I've been with the company for over 27 years. So I'm very well known in the community. And so they feel comfortable coming to me. And if I don't have the information that they need, I make sure that I connect them with someone who can assist them, even with Ibero, because we work close a lot. So we do a lot of programs with them.
I was asking you before the program about stories that you remember over the years. And very understandably, you said, look, when you've done this for almost 3 decades, you don't always, even at this point, remember names of everyone, but you remember the stories. Can you describe some of that comes to mind that illustrates the importance of the work you're doing?
For sure. I had met with this lady who had a young child. She was a teenager at the time, very ill. She was chronically ill. They had businesses. They had a very nice house in Fairport. They had no clue that there was Child Plus, the health insurance that would have helped them. And so when they met with me at this point, they had lost their business. They had lost their house. They were basically living day by day. And so when I met with her, she was like, I had no idea that this was available. So I helped her get the health insurance that she needed for her daughter's treatment. And she told me I was her angel. And she actually came back with a card and brought me a little metal angel. And that's what she calls me till today. I'm her angel. I was able to help her daughter. And so that makes me proud. And it's heartfelt because a lot of people don't know what we offer. They're not sure of what we do. But Excellus BlueCross BlueShield is not only here for the people, but also for the community.
And it's not, certainly it's the big things like that. It's the life-saving things. But it's also things like gym memberships and other, what do you want people to understand?
And so there's health and wellness. So you're able to get a gym membership. There's case management. So if someone's having a hard time, we have a group called Community Connections. And they will go out to people's homes. They will see what their needs are, and they will make the connections. We also have a program with meals. So if somebody needs meals delivered to them, we also do that. So once they become our member, there's a plethora of benefits that we offer them. If someone's having surgery and they need some type of assistance, they make those calls. If they can't get a hold of those people, they will make a home visit. And so we're out there doing outreach as well. Like I said earlier, just meeting the people where they are.
What worries you the most about people who you don't reach?
Oh, that worries me a lot. There are a lot of people that we can't reach or are afraid to reach out to us. So all we continue to do is bring the information, network with different agencies in the community, and show up. Show up to these events. Make sure that they're aware that they can go get their blood pressure check, or they can get some type of mammography or dental work. So we meet them where they are, and I want them to come to us whether it's myself or Angelica or even Ramona being in this neighborhood for 30 years, everybody knows who she is. People relate to people that look like them. And so being able to speak their language, being present and available is important. So feel free to share my information, send them my way. I'm always here.
Ramona, maybe tied to parallel to healthcare is the question of if kids are growing up thinking that they can find work. Have your kids grown up thinking that if they want to, they can work either in the neighborhood or live in the neighborhood and work?
Yeah.
That's good.
Especially my 17-year-old. She's very, I try to get her involved, going out and volunteering in the community and stuff like that. Actually, my oldest, my son, he started when they started the Conkey Park over here. He started with the Genesee Land Trust. He was one of the first kids that started putting trees and stuff like that when they first did the El Camino. So, so I try to get that for my kids to be involved where they live, show them that they have to be proud of where they're coming from, just because, it might be right now, a little hard out there or stuff like that. But I always try to show them that they have to be proud of where they're coming from and who they are, not to be scared.
Angie, of course, Rochester 30, 40 years ago especially, had a lot bigger employment base, 3 or 4 big companies. Now, do you feel like there are families that maybe match what Ramona is saying, that feel like they can grow up here, they will find work, are there employers? How do you feel about that?
Well, we know that one of the greatest needs that come through our community resource center is employment support, and it's interesting because we don't always see ourselves as somebody who leads in workforce development, but we have over 600 people that walk into this building anytime throughout the year asking specifically for placement. So we had a pilot through Comida. Comida gave us some funding. And we are on our last 4th year of that funding, where we've been able to make some really deep relationships, not just in manufacturing, automotive, healthcare, to be able to place a lot of people in jobs. I think sometimes it's just about accessibility. I think one of the great things about Ibero is that we are in the neighborhood. So, sitting out there playing parking attendant for the past couple of days, I watch people just walk over. They're cutting through the trail. They're coming over. They're stopping here to get services. We are actually, in a couple of weeks, we will have our first group of youth community health workers. We run a community. We're the only registered community health worker apprenticeship program. We have created an army of 150 community workers through our Comida grant, and this summer we're going to have, I think it's 10 to 15 youth that will become community health workers. So I think it's sometimes offering the possibility. The great thing about the community that we serve, I will give you my entire paycheck. We have one of the most hard-working communities. Latinos, I always remind people, Ibero relocated 395 families to upstate New York from the New York City shelters. And when there was a lot of that rhetoric about people accessing public benefits or, committing fraud with Medicaid, whatever the narrative was out there, I reminded people that out of 395 people that we moved, only one access social services, and that's because they have stage 4 breast cancer. It couldn't work. Families don't come here to receive benefits. They come here to work, to uplift their communities, to seek home ownership. We're on our 47th family of that have been able to purchase a home in this neighborhood through some funding that we got through Schumer's office to make sure that home ownership was equitable. So that's the number one need, but that requires a lot of tailoring. We work with a great partner, Bartlett Company. Bartlett Company did job descriptions in Spanish. They even came here at one point to do orientations in a bilingual format to really support the onboarding of folks who are limited English proficiency. So the careers are there. The employers have to decide whether they're going to be committed and dedicated to the pipeline that is available to them. So I don't think the issue so much lies with us in our community, but rather how other people are opening those doors and opportunities for our community.
We have to take the only break of the hour, and when we come back, we're going to ask the audience, our live audience, if they've got comments or questions. You're hearing Angelica Perez-Delgado, who's President and CEO of Ibero-American Action League. We are coming to you live from Ibero's Community Resource Center at El Camino. Ramona Colon is a resident of the El Camino neighborhood. Maria Garcia grew up here and is a marketplace bilingual facilitated enroller for Excellus BlueCross BlueShield. We're going to come right back on Connections on the road here at El Camino. This is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. We're live on the road at Ibero-American Action League's Community Resource Center at El Camino in the El Camino neighborhood. If you want Connections live in your neighborhood, let us know. We are going to be doing this more often because we are the public square and we want to be where everyone is, where the conversations are happening. And it's not always easy to talk about issues like we've been discussing. So I want to ask the audience to offer some round of applause, especially for Ramona and everyone here who's been really sharing their stories. They're doing a great job bringing perspective that we desperately need to understand more of. Okay, the microphone is in the audience, and that looks like Miguel Melendez, President of Rochester City Council.
My name was invoked, so is it on?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's on.
Okay, great. So I just want to provide a little bit more context. I think Angie was being too modest, and I appreciate Ramona's feedback too, because in this neighborhood, Ibero, actually the building we're in right now, this was a vacant warehouse space. We invested a lot of resources in this community in terms of building that built environment we're talking about. And I want to highlight just a few quick things. So one, in 2010 and 2012, we built El Camino Estates in 2 phases, providing 50 units of housing in this neighborhood. We added 103 units of housing through Pueblo Nuevo in 2021. The International Plaza was built in 2020. El Camino Trail was built in 2011. The park that we talked about next to El Camino, Conky Corner Park, was built in 2008 with a playground that was built by the community in 2010. So this neighborhood has a history of having challenges, but also having investment and opportunity. And Ibero, I think, to be not modest in this case, is at the center of a lot of those things. And Ramona's point is well taken. We need to figure out how do we make sure that we're also investing in the community organizing piece of this. And it doesn't matter who does it, but someone has to do it because residents are busy doing their own thing, trying to work jobs, sometimes 2 jobs. So having that support from the community and having grassroots organizations step in and step up and help is critical. So I just want to make those comments and appreciate the panel.
Thank you, Miguel.
No.
Yeah. Angie?
Yeah, and I'll add, a lot of the things that we are very modest, and part of it is because our work is really about community. At the end of the day, as a leader, and this may sound really abrupt, I really don't care what any of you guys think other than the community I serve. They know the work that I do. They show up when I need them. So part of that modesty is really the grounding of who we're serving and what do we exist for. But, when the resource center opened here through Pueblo Nuevo, Ibero filled the space up. We ramped up this building with a lot of programming. This is where most of our services are. We're at St. Michael's not because we needed a space to be. We are at St. Michael's because, I was approached by the diocese about the conditions in St. Michael's. It was full of encampments. There were thousands of needles. The diocese was threatening at the time to close the church. We made the decision, to leave our building and come to the church to anchor that space. And now it's this vibrant, campus that we will probably outgrow in the next couple of years. I mean, I can take up the whole show if I give you the list, but and as a reminder, going back to the incident on Wednesday, the reason why we keep some of that humility is because at the end of the day, the community that I serve knows what I do. And when situations like this happen to us, they are the first ones to show up. We got very little media coverage. We didn't have a big incident in our campus, but part of that is because we need to realize we can take care of ourselves. This community is very capable of taking care of ourselves. We have enough assets to be able to take care of ourselves and grow. We don't need no charity. We don't need no pity. We are a vibrant community capable of that. So for me, that's the work that Ibero has done. I keep telling our elders and the founders of this institution that they need to write a book. There will be many stories that will be untold about what Ibero has meant to this neighborhood. But the people who have lived here and experienced it will never forget it, and they will show up for us every single time because of that work.
Okay, next.
Hi, my name is Ida Perez, and I am the chair of the El Camino Association here that we just recently started. It's only about 6 months in. And, you know, together with Ramona, when we did have the funding for community organizing, we were, you know, she created her Black Club, I created our Black Club on Scranton Street, and we've been working together ever since. And in fact, Ibero has provided El Camino Association an office here, which was part of the vision plan that we had back in 2015, that we would eventually have an association and have an office here, you know, free of charge. Not most organizations can start an association with an office, a phone, computer, all of the things necessary to be able to do that. You know, even though I'm glad that we have the association, we are the second poorest neighborhood in New York State, meaning that most associations are funded by memberships. We've gone to the lowest dollar amount that we could possibly save, you know, $5 per household. But there may be neighbors that will not be able to pay that. So we still depend on funding available, you know, to be able to do what we do. And there's a lot of the members here today. We cover from Upper Falls to East Ridge Road, from St. Paul to Remington. So it is a large area. We've divided it into 11 sections. We're still looking for members, and we're also, you know, seeking for funding to do this. I think Ibero has done enough to support us and help us, but we still need other folks to help us as well. And I say all of that to say that there are people who care here in this neighborhood. There are people who are dedicated and spend a lot of time improving their neighborhoods, and a lot of them are here today. And again, it's a neighborhood with many challenges. Ramona, my daughter Hildred, who's here, we've picked up thousands and thousands of needles in this neighborhood throughout the years, but we also have built a lot of good things here, and I don't want people to forget that.
Anything you want to add there, Ramona?
No.
I will say, Ida, your name has come up in a number of conversations with people who know you and appreciate the work that you've done. And building neighborhood associations, block parties, events, getting people to know each other is so important, and your name comes up a lot. So I appreciate that.
Hi.
This looks like Jillian.
One of you mentioned community health workers. Mm-hmm. And I was just wondering, what does a community health worker do? And after their training, what kind of business would they work for?
Yeah. Well, community health workers, you know, my chief ops is going to see if I'm going to pass the test. But community health workers are really people from the community that have been trained to advocate in many different spectrums for their own community. So a community health worker, one thing that I've learned as we've implemented community health workers in our institution is that many of us are community health workers and we don't even know it. So a good example of how we've used community health workers is when COVID happened. It's probably the most concrete example. When COVID happened, we knew that in our community there were certain populations that were not reached. So we take a group of people from the community. We do this intensive, very intensive training. I mean, it's like equivalent to college credits, but we do it at the pace in which the community learns. We make them experts in their own right about these little topics. We teach them how to navigate the system, and then they go on and serve their communities. So community health workers at Ibero was what helped vaccinate over 4,000 seniors when nobody else could reach them. Community health workers is who mobilized when the migrant buses began to come in our community and families became in crisis. Community health workers are the ones that are mobilizing now around some of the violence and some of the issues that we're having with Medicaid. So it's and maybe my chief ops will grab the mic and explain it a little bit better, but it's really an individual who is embedded in the community, who works outside of the system to mobilize their community into access, into wellness, into better health outcomes. They're one of the most proven types of workforce. So they could work at a hospital, they could work at Ibero, they could work anywhere that anybody wants to engage community, they can work for a news media institution if you wanted to. They could work for anyone who's looking to access, educate, reach, and provide service to a community that's in need. But the key is that they have to be from their community. So for you to be a community health worker, you have to be from the community and have the similar experiences that like the people that you're trying to serve.
I think, yeah, let's get Assemblymember Clark, we're going to get you the microphone eventually here. There's a lot of people waiting.
Good morning or good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Otero. I am a lifelong Ibero board member, and I just want to make 3 brief comments. Number 1, thank you for connections to coming out this way here in this neighborhood. That begins the conversation for us, for a conversation that's been going on a long time. So thank you. You've done that. The second thing I want to mention is to the neighbors, those that live there. I lived at 42 Harris Street in late 1960s. That house no longer lives. It doesn't exist. But I can tell you that there was great people then, just like I'm hearing there's great people in the 90s, and gente buena currently now. Right. What they need is support. So kudos to the ones that are there and fighting and going after and taking care of this neighborhood. The third thing I want to mention is Angelica mentioned that the league has to pursue programming in order to pay its bills, but they do so much more. And so what they really need, and I'll do a little bit of pushback saying we don't need help. We do need help. But I'm asking for those that are listening to this program to begin looking at those, and I'm talking specifically to those that have means, to those that have a philanthropic instinct, to come join and meet with Angelica and her team. Talk to them. Ask them about what's going on. They need something outside of programming to help support the wonderful work that goes on 24/7 here. Thank you.
Will you meet with them?
Yes, I would meet with anyone. And you're correct, Dr. Otero. We need the right kind of help. We need the funds, the ability for us to lead in our community the way that we want to lead. I won't share the institution, but a great example of this is we had a contract for our community health workers, and every single step of the way they were telling us how to engage our community, what they wanted us to do, how they wanted us to do it. The program outcomes were not adding up. Out of pure frustration, Lucia and I, my chief operating officer, are in a room. We said, we're going to let it go. People can't tell us what to do. We know how to serve our community. We just need the means to do that. We went to the institution. We put the hard line and said, we want to partner with you, but you have to let us be who we are, right? Ibero is very well known for engaging. I don't know of many institutions that can turn up a community event and have thousands of people show up without even, advance notice. The minute that this institution, this funder, allowed us to do what we needed to do, we became the #1 engagement agency that they were working with. The minute that they just unrestricted us. So what we need is people who believe in who we are, who understand the track record that we bring to the table. Not perfect, but we have a great track record. And for them to trust us to be an institution that is responsible, that is capable of delivering, and also one who is able to tell you when we can't. We're also, that humility also comes with accountability on our end. So if we can't do it and we're failing at it, we will be the first ones that will tell you, you know what, this is beyond us. We're not delivering, because we don't want to ever be we don't ever want to be the barrier to community resources. So if it's not us, we'll help you find out who it is as well. So I agree. Unrestricted support that believes in our mission at the core and that believes in what Ibero can deliver is exactly what we need.
Okay.
Hello. Thank you. I feel like this is sort of a follow-up, because I was thinking about this as well of we have heard multiple times that private dollars are a little easier to finesse, or a little easier, but also difficult. They do come with their own metrics and their whatever. But state dollars are particularly hard. And this is something we've talked about a lot of different times, and a lot of the different challenges around how we get state dollars into the folks who are doing the real work, trusted partners, those from the community of which they are serving. if you could wave a magic wand and look at state dollars and say, we can't, unrestricted might be the impossible, but within that, where are we really failing in terms of what state dollars should be funding? And I would love to hear from Angie, but also anyone in their community, like what if that magic wand could be waved and you could say, yes, there is this pot that would fund that from the state, we know this would change lives, what would those be?
I mean, the first magic wand that I would wave is the administrative level of support that agencies like ours need. You know, when admin is capped at 15%, sometimes as low as 4% or 10%, depending on the funder. Their checks don't write themselves. The HVAC units don't replace themselves. The level of, I can do a voucher. Literally this morning, I signed a voucher that was over 600 pages of backup of documentation. Somebody has to look through that to make sure that it can pass. So the first one that I would waive is recognizing that a nonprofit institution is a business like any other, and it needs infrastructure and administrative support to be able to function within this very complex regulatory environment. I work with almost every single state agency. The other magic wand that I would wave is they all want something very different. So I have to adapt my business to how the Office of Children and Families wants one thing, how the Office of Mental Health wants another, the Department of Health, AIDS Institute. I mean, I can go on. None of them want the same administrative process the same. So I have to have a team that is sophisticated enough to be able to understand all those business requirements to successfully get a voucher out the door that is not rejected. The other magic wand that I would wave, which is the most infuriating thing, for me to submit a voucher, I'll give you a concrete example. For me to submit a voucher of $30,000 and for the state to hold up my voucher over $250 or $1,200 is an insult to the work that nonprofits do. Then we're strapped for cash. I have the worst cash flow anywhere. I have to put up front almost $13 million worth of services to then wait sometimes up to 6 months for somebody to reimburse me back. Guess what my biggest expense is? Staff, personnel. Every other week, Ibero has to figure out where they're going to get $320,000 worth of payroll to pay their staff. Then put, our electricity and everything else that we have to keep going. It's almost like an upside down business. And no person in their right mind will probably start a business like ours. So I think it's realistically looking at how these state agencies, I don't understand why they need to be so different. A voucher is a voucher. They all require the same thing, and their process should be uniform. And out of the 25, 30, 50 plus different systems that each state agency use, for the life of me, I don't understand why they can't use one. So I have to submit vouchers to 20 different systems, to 20 different things for something that belongs to one state government. So that's a huge task, but that's my magic wand right there, out of many.
And Ramona, how about funding block parties again?
Yes, that would be great. Bringing block parties, helping in the community. So that would be amazing.
We got about 30 seconds. Got to keep it tight.
We're going to close really good. I remember when I was growing up in Clinton Avenue, we had a jewelry store, we had a furniture store, we had restaurants that were owned by Latinos. The wealth was being built, but as the years went on and then the decades, it turned into nothing because why? There was no investment. So this is what's been affecting us. There's no investment in our community in order for us to get the services that we could help the people get. So if you want to really do something, we have to start investing. And also, we have wealth within the Latino community that we could use to help build the community again like we did in the 70s and the 80s.
That's a call for more investment. And you agree with that, panel?
Yes.
We'd like to see that.
For sure.
Maybe a round of applause for this incredible panel that we've had this hour. I only wish we had a second hour with all of you, but I want to thank Ibero-American Action League Community Resource Center at El Camino, the wonderful neighborhood for hosting us. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to Ramona repping the neighborhood. Great meeting you. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Maria Garcia from Excellus BlueCross BlueShield and a member really of the neighborhood alumni. Thank you for being here. And Angelica Perez-Delgado, President and CEO of Ibero, thank you for having us. Thank you for the whole team at Connections here that has put this together, and we'll see you on the road somewhere soon in your community. We do have more Connections coming up in a moment.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited.